committee meeting. Yeah. Short agenda tonight. Hopefully we can, most of these things are the things that we talked about before. There's one new kind of newish item, but otherwise, we're looking at stuff that maybe the horse is approaching death. And we can blast right through it. First item on our list is review and approval of the minutes from January meeting. Anyone have any feedback other than Adam?
A motion to accept the minutes.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as amended so that Andy Smith appears instead of Adam Smith, the famous economist from the 1700s. All those in favor? Motion passes. Next up. Next item is the approval of the Monmouth TIF Amendment #1.
Right, so I did tell Kent, this application is with all of the exhibits. I'll just grab this one and walk you through it. Is about 35 pages long. The beauty of it is that none of the amendments come until after the town votes on it, because it's, it's public hearing minutes, it's vote tally, it's all of these things. So you have about 8 or 9 pieces that go into this that we don't have yet because we haven't gone through the process. But
Right.
Just to go through this, this is a standard application. You're welcome to look through it. This is the second amendment to this TIF
Right.
district that the town has done. And the original application sought to capture the new value created by the Central Maine Power Substation, as well as create a focused business growth area in town. Amendment 1 added 99.6 acres of land to the original district. So they're asking for the background history. This amendment is changing the allowable projects, adding and subtracting projects that the town can use TIF revenues for, your tax revenues, and also adding 10 years to the TIF district. Originally, and during the first amendment, this was a 20-year TIF. It's makes sense to just extend it to 30 years. If for some reason the town ever decides that they don't want to shelter this money and they didn't want TIF revenues anymore, it's a simple letter to the Department of Economic and Community Development that dissolves the TIF district. So there's no harm in prolonging it. If you guys get to 20 years and decide that this isn't how you want to be utilizing the tax dollars anymore, it's that simple.
Okay.
Again, some of these don't apply because this is the second amendment, so we don't have any developer information because there's no new developer that's coming on to the project. There's no employment goals. Let's see here. And we're not changing the acreage of the district. And so then that also means that the original value, that value that the district is set at, is not changing. So that's why I didn't make 7 copies of this, because this isn't really what we are looking to review, but there are copies for you to look at. What we were reviewing was the list of expenditures, which we had taken a poll from the town during the vote and kind of tailored some of these to what the town also felt was needed. And actually, Ken, you have the copy that has kind of the top 5 responses that we've talked about in prior meetings from that survey. So up here.
Oh, okay, right. Gotcha.
So people were looking for recreational trail creation, certain environmental protections specific to the lakes. We're going to see if we can get that through. They talk about marine resources, but we'll see if we can get that line item included, so you can spend some money on kind of keeping the lake clean and kind of an economic driver for the town. The business facade improvement in the downtown areas was something else that people wanted to see TIF revenue spent on. Public water extension to North Monmouth. We're kind of tabling that for now because there's some other groups that are working on that, and hopefully we'll get some state money on that. And a portion of costs associated with fire equipment and fire in the fire department. So again, with the CMP substation, if there were ever a situation out there, certainly the fire department would need to be called upon, and that qualifies it for some money, some TIF revenues.
So, so we're tabling number 4, but 1, 2, 3, and 5 all require a language change.
Right, and they've all been included in here. They've all been included in the now projects for TIF district. So going below. This is basically the way that the state requires the municipal projects to be presented and approved. And so we have the cost of public safety improvements, specifically firefighter equipment, that's shaded and included in here. We have
At
the
$30,000 annually, potentially.
right, and so yes, we'll talk about the things in a moment.
Yep.
The number 13, cost of funding environmental improvement projects developed by the municipality.
I see another, I think mine didn't properly.
Here. Yeah.
There we go. 13.
13, cost of funding environmental improvement projects developed by the municipality for commercial use. That's where we're putting the kind of the marine lake cleanup type project.
Yeah.
The cost associated with new or existing recreational trails.
Yeah.
And then the fourth one was the public water extension. We're not doing.
Which we're not.
And then the facade improvements was already included in this, in your allowable expenses in the first place. So we just,
So there was no language change required.
correct, it's already been approved. It's
Right.
always already something you can spend money on. And then we had also talked about taking the Monmouth Business Park out of your allowable expenses. And, that was 2 items around the Monmouth Business Park. So those were cut out of the allowable expenditures. Now, I think I spoke about this at the last meeting, but Garrett, you weren't here. And I apologize that this doesn't have the correct numbers on it, but when I was talking to Justin about the cost estimate, the allowable cost. Basically, this column is what the town is approving to spend up to in a given category. So you can put something on here and never spend $1 out of this category. But if you wanted to, you could. So when the voters approve this, they're basically approving the allowance of spending up to that amount of money. Usually towns want to put some cushion in there just so that they don't have to go back for an amendment if there was a situation where you wanted to spend more than what's allowed in that category. That's a really annoying amendment to have to do. But most municipalities, I would say, don't do this allocation of an annual amount each year. For one big reason, as Justin and I were talking about, if we look at number 7, so for example, we have $300,000 in number 7, downtown area projects, streetscapes and facade improvements, downtown area streetscape to promote downtown economic development. If you had a project that came up that cost $300,000 in year 7 of the TIF, you would not have enough money to in that line item to or maybe even cover the debt service for a bond issue or anything, because you're only allocating $10,000 a year to that project. So it has to add up, basically. It has to accumulate in this line item, because you're saying right now we're only allowed $10,000 a year to be spent in that category. So Justin's request is that if we put whole figures in the cost estimate, that gives the town more flexibility to be able to use $150,000 in year 5 of the district, for example, versus having to wait for an annual allocation for it to kind of accumulate.
I have a suggestion.
Yes,
So I'm just trying to anticipate, what that would look like in a voter's mind as they enter the booth and, you know, they see $500,000 for costs associated with recreation and trail. And that might cause some consternation and confusion. If on the other hand, they saw $500,000 over 20 years. If we could phrase it that way, I think maybe that would be a little more comprehensible. So if we want to go with, I mean, because this TIF only has 20 years left on it, and if we wanted to go with a large figure like that, then if we could add in, you know, whatever the amount is over 20 years, then I think we have a lot less splaining to do, and we get the flexibility that I know Justin wants and makes complete sense. Right?
I agree with that. I think a lot of people are gonna see that huge dollar amount and be like, what? And also probably only not really have a great comprehension of what a tip even is to begin with.
Right.
And they're just gonna get sticker shock and.
Or even better, maybe is a way to say it's $500,000 to be allocated between, maybe we could even put the actual years. Right? 2023 to 2043 or whatever the
I'm
years are.
wondering if, I'll have to see what, I'm sure other communities have done this, and it's however the state likes it phrased best. But what I would say is over the 30-year life of the TIF district, because
Right.
some of these numbers have been since the beginning of
Right.
the district, and you've been spending money out of these categories for 10 years. Anyway, so if we can put $450,000 over the 30-year life of the district in each item, then we'll do that. Okay, perfect. Then that's what I will change that to.
So I have a question. So in terms of like what's actually been spent out of TIF, I'm only saying 43,000 total.
Well, right now, actually, the auditor is giving me those final numbers.
Okay.
Because they're, I think there's been some. They're reconciling all of the books for the TIF for the past.
Well, I guess my question was more, is that accruing? So like years that we haven't spent the TIF.
Right.
We
it
still
just
have
sits
that
there.
balance,
Yeah,
right?
It just sits
So
there.
is there more money than, this is the annual, right?
That's
But there's
correct.
other stuff that we could spend.
I don't have my budget packet with me, but
That's the general
hundreds.
question.
There,
right?
there are 2 or 3 accounts where we spent some significant funding for facade grants and for we financed some sidewalk improvements, both in North Monmouth, on Maple Street. I think the sidewalk improvements were the financing costs for the sidewalk improvements.
So if there, we haven't spent all the TIF money from the past 7 years.
No,
So how is that money going to be spent? Is it have to be according to this?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think there's an accumulation, and Doug, you can correct me if your recollection is a little bit different than mine, but I think there might be an accumulation of about
Do we want to put that on here anywhere?
$300,000
Okay.
sitting there.
I guess you would mind. Big year.
But it's not, it's not an account that gets zeroed out every year.
Right.
There's,
Right.
there's something there probably right now where I think we're kind of anticipating the sidewalk project that's gonna happen on Main Street in a couple of years, and so we're kind of saving our nickels and dimes. Yes, Doug, look at you. We'll pass that one around.
Got it, okay, yeah, so there's,
So just so you know, and so everyone can understand where that money's going and what's happening to it, we're expecting the sidewalk. There's been a delay on the sidewalk improvement. Because we're waiting for DOT to finish some process there for, we only have to do it once. They're replacing drainage stuff down there. And we'll do the sidewalk thing, but we know it's coming. We've already got sort of a plan and engineering stuff. An engineering design is coming to fruition, and we know that's gonna come up in the next year or two. So we can sort of like this would allow us to do, if you state it over the course of a 20-year or a 30-year period, and we're saving up money to just put a big slug of cash toward whatever that sidewalk project costs us.
How are the
Okay.
funds? Oh, yeah,
oh, no, go
follow up
ahead,
to
go
that.
ahead, no, go ahead.
I was just curious how the funds are actually administered, like who controls the TIF funds in town?
So the taxes are collected by the town, and it goes into a dedicated account. And right now it's accumulating at about, I think our last budget was $135,000-ish a year.
Yep.
That gets set aside, as it used to be 120, but we did a revaluation of the CMP substation and found some additional value that wasn't taxed. So so it's accumulating at the rate of about $135,000 a year.
Yep, and so the select board then control, like,
Just.
Okay.
And that's actually, that's one of the warrant items on every one of our ballots, is like, people are signing off, giving permission to the select board the discretion to disperse
disbursement.
TIF money as it sees fit, and you know, when the Maple Street project needed to be paid for, that was what we relied on to pay for the financing
Okay,
that took care of that project. Here's the name. That comes prepared. Not bad for an English major.
I think it makes this annual costing easier if we have 700,000 balances and net whatever pending project. I'm seeing on the right?
Beginning balance, ending balance. Yep,
So if there's a big project that comes along, we
Yep.
could use some of that balance on one of these if we increase the amount to be spent over 30 years.
Over a 30-year
Yeah, so,
period.
yeah, so I mean, that makes it easier to think about.
And it also shows, I mean, again, you don't have to kind of do the math. Oh, wait, the district's been in effect for 12
Yeah,
years. so you
yeah.
have this much money, and that, you know how much you have to spend
Yeah,
in this
yeah.
category, so. Okay, what I would like to do, since I didn't provide you all with your own copies of it, is just quickly run through what the numbers are, okay, so. Downtown area projects, 450,000. Professional and administrative, and if there are any of these that you think should be changed, now is the time to do it. Professional administrative costs, 300,000, CEA payments, 300,000. Downtown area projects, 450,000. Cost of public safety improvements, 600,000. Downtown area projects, 150,000. So far.
Yep. I'll catch up on the
Oh,
early
sorry.
stuff, Andy.
This downtown area projects at advertising marketing was 150,000. Downtown area project streetscape and facade improvements, 300,000. Economic development events, 600,000. Economic development plan and general programs, 300,000. Revolving loan fund, 750,000. Training funds, 300,000. Childcare costs, 150,000. Environmental improvements, 500,000. Costs associated with new or existing recreational trails, 500,000. That's it.
But I guess the first question is where the numbers came from.
I multiplied the annual numbers by,
Well, I guess where did they come from initially? Like this is just,
that's what they allocated in 2013
okay. Got it.
when they,
Except for the new categories.
except for the
which
new category.
That's what I'm wondering about the new.
we Sort of made up
Okay.
and kind of wanted to get a feel for what is reasonable.
Yep.
And, it's, this is a relative thing. We're making a recommendation to the select board, so those things can change as well. But when we talked about, public sheltering some of the costs of public safety improvements, a $30,000 annual allocation kind of makes sense because we know we're going to spend that on public safety. And if that's a reason, if ECD thinks that's reasonable, then I'm happy to use TIF money instead of general fund money to pay for that because TIF money gets a bigger bang for the dollar.
Wasn't there there's a limit to the amount that we could fund of the budget? Is that right? For the public safety or no?
No, they, what DECD will look for is, or what the select board will need to look for is what they're spending money on, I want to say encouraged, but somewhat necessitated by the creation of that TIF district. Now that the fire station is responsible for this CMP station, for example, and the development within that district, what additional needs would they have to make sure that they were adequately
Okay.
prepared if something happened?
So you can't go above that. You can't just say.
No, you
it's
can't
all
just like
for the fire
fund the
department.
entire fire department. No, yeah, you can't do that.
No, so it needs to be, there's
Yeah,
a reasonability
reasonable.
test where they would say,
I don't remember if it was a percent budget or what.
No, but I've seen administrators do kind of that before, but no,
Those things.
yeah. So,
and then, so when we're adding in these two additional categories of environmental improvement and costs associated with new or existing recreational trails, to put them on the same, to put them on the par with, say, the that doesn't make sense to me. Say the $25,000 we would annually allocate to the revolving loan fund or matching grants. Kind of puts them as the priority for the other relative
Right.
Items on the list. By the way, how come at 25,000 a year, the revolving loan fund, I jotted down 750K. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I said, but looking at that number, it's very large.
I think it might be 500K.
You want to put a 500?
Well, I'm just, at 25 a year times 20 would be 500K.
Yeah,
Okay,
perfect, yep. All right, so we're changing number 10 to 500,000, which I think is reality.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that people have for thoughts at this point?
Do we have to put that 250 elsewhere?
No.
Or is this just a?
no, this is just an upper bound.
Okay,
It says not to exceed this figure.
okay.
The downtown area projects. Originally, we figured 15,000 annually.
I think you had 5,000 for number 6 and 10,000 for number,
If I meant number one.
oh, sorry. Oh, yeah.
So 15 times 20 would be
300.
300K. And the same for number 4, although maybe we want to leave number 4 alone, considering
What it is.
what it is and how costly that can be.
Yeah.
And perhaps there's gonna be some interest at some point in parking facilities downtown. All right. What other questions can we answer for this? In terms of the amendment.
We amend it again at any time, right?
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
It's been
I
a
guess.
pain, but you know.
It's taken us,
It's not final, is what I'm saying.
No, it's never final.
Yeah. It's taken us like a year to do this.
Yeah.
And and we're all not even a third of the way there, because we still have to go get permission from DECD and then permission from the voters, and there's a lot of
There is, but this.
process involved.
There's process, but well, we can fly right through that, so. We're gonna get this on the
Okay.
election.
So do I hear a motion to make a recommendation to the select board, and I'll be happy to carry this select board on Wednesday. Do I hear a motion to recommend the list as has been amended?
Motion.
I can't make the motion.
Motion.
Garrett.
Garrett gives us the motion. Andy seconds. Any discussion before we vote? All right, then all those in favor? Okay,
Excellent.
and the motion passes, and if you can get me
I'll get you
a
yeah.
cleaned up
Cleaned
final
version,
version. And can I have that copy too?
Sure.
Okay. I'll bring this with it, and then we can make the recommendation at Wednesday's meeting and instruct tomorrow's meeting and instruct the town manager to put a warrant item together for this.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, so that's done. Okay. Number 4, yep, go
Yes.
ahead.
Number 4 is a TIF recommendation in the proposed growth area.
So,
This is for another TIF district.
right, and we talked about this again at this January meeting, just reiterating this for you and setting it up because we didn't have all the information here. So, right now, we have, this is the Monmouth growth area from the 2007 comprehensive plan. Andy and others have indicated that the growth area is probably not going to change much for the next comp plan. Is that fair to say? It's a minimal change. So the reason we got started talking about this is because we do have new owners of the Knowles lumber site. We also have 3 or 4 businesses that are in that short stretch of 202. And in order to, I guess, maybe stay as flexible as possible, we thought it might make sense to designate some portion of 202 corridor as with a TIF district. And again, this is really prompted by making sure that we have the lowest value of Knowles, that Knowles lumber can be at before the new owners start renovating that property and adding value to it. So if ever we wanted to incentivize them to potentially bring more business to that site, we would be able to offer more, since they're right now is the lowest value. They don't know what they're going to do with that site. It may never be necessitated, but we want to leave that option open. And also, again, start to identify, kind of go along with the growth area identified by the comprehensive plan, and and highlight this portion of town as where it can be developed, that would be something that Monmouth is interested in getting developed. So I took a stab. I don't know if any of you have ever looked at the maps of 202 out here. But the lots are very interestingly drawn.
That's what you got.
That's what I was
I
like.
really haven't looked at them.
So let's see, it's this. Again, so what I did, basically, mapping is hard. What I have here is just a Google map of kind of the stretch of 202. If you guys want to use this, you can put this together kind of for a reference, but the reason I brought it at all was just because it shows where the buildings are on 202 as opposed to your town maps that don't have any buildings on them. So it's just an interesting thing to look at, but unfortunately, there's no paper that goes 4 feet long and 8 inches wide. So I apologize for it not being a little more together, but I think it does give you a sense of kind of the cluster development in on 202. Now the Knowles lumber site is this kind of cluster of buildings on the right map, furthest right. That's across from Pulte Furniture. There's also a gas station there. TJ's is there. What else is there? Wilson's was a little further up, but there's 3 or 4 businesses right in that short stretch of 202 that the committee was discussing putting a TIF district around. And then the further discussion was, do we want it to match with the growth area of the town? It's like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So I took a stab with this map of identifying the lots that might need to be included in a TIF district that captured that area. And the thing, let's see, where's the other one? I didn't draw on the second one because it was just getting very awkward. But here, I guess you can look at this one and pass on. Basically, this is Main Street, and this is going out. You can see how some of these lots that have frontage just go back for acres, it seems, and wouldn't really be super, the backside of it wouldn't be super advantageous to be in a TIF district, because, I just don't know what would be developed on there. The other question is whether some of this is swamplands, that wouldn't be developed on anyway. And again, it's not a huge deal. If a property is in a TIF district and doesn't get developed. But I guess I was looking for guidance from the committee, whether we should stay true to the specific growth area, because I kind of was looking at the whole 202 corridor between Winthrop and Main Street, where we went on to Main Street Monmouth. Or if we should kind of keep it focused on the growth areas identified by the comprehensive plan.
Yes.
Well, so what's the restriction on the acreage that could be in it?
It couldn't exceed 2% of the town for any one district. And again, that none of
It's
that,
not gonna be large
no,
enough to
that won't trigger anything.
Well, the growth area also includes another section of 202, well, identified by the comprehensive plan, and includes another section of 202 farther down, farther off to the south.
Right. Which also, again, you can certainly include that as well. We could literally make it the two growth areas that are on 202 as identified by the TIF district, as opposed to trying to map all of 202.
So what's in red there? What is the farthest northeast parcel? Is that Polkey Furniture? Or, yeah, it's hard for me to figure out what's
Yeah, it is.
based on where
That's Polkey.
NFS Cook.
It's Polkey.
It is Polkey?
Yep. Yep. Ma'am, is this the town line right here? It says M46.
No, that's the map line. So
All right, maybe I'm wrong this.
So-
It just doesn't look like it's far enough.
Far enough down?
Yeah, that looks like it, does that even get to the Knowles lumber?
oh, this is, oh yeah, you're. So there's just this small piece of 202 on map 46, which is what it joins to that one.
Okay, and that's how you get up to Knowles, because I think
Right.
Knowles must be on that map then.
So it would
It's
be,
just
it
Knowles right here.
would be like this. And then the third map, I'm telling you, there's just,
Yeah, this is Knowles, right? But I'm trying to figure out where it is on that. in terms of
Andy's
which
got a good eye.
things actually.
Yeah, it's hard to see because there's like 7 maps involved here. So
Yes.
this is map 46. This is map 40. There's a reference to map 47 here that we can't see.
well, here's
Oh,
47.
that's 47?
Yeah.
All right,
So,
so then
kind of a line to,
kind of,
it's,
yeah, it goes like this. It goes right there. right
This
there.
must be Clifton Road, this road right here,
Hmm.
which. It's still not
this. Hmm.
Okay, so this is the stream just north of Knowles and Polkey. So Polkey is actually, I think, this one right here. This is Polkey Furniture,
3.6 acres.
because there's this stream right
Yeah.
here that goes underneath the road right there. And then Knowles,
Must be across this.
what map is, this is Knowles here. That would be Knowles, this lot number 1.
yeah, it's.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
We do.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's worth including, but I think, the concrete plant, I don't know if they're gonna add value there, to their lot, but the concrete plant is presumably the lot right behind Polkey, the 16 acres is the hilly concrete.
So you can add a certain amount of acres as a percentage of town, but also a certain percent of the total value of the land, right?
Right, and
So if we're
again,
adding like something big in there that may not utilize it, it wouldn't be advantageous if we bumped up against the limit.
right, and I can certainly, as you,
I don't know if it's a big deal.
well, it's hard to get to that, it's
Yeah.
hard to get to that limit.
I'm thinking,
Sorry, Ken, this parcel here is just a small,
Yeah,
I don't know if that's really worth including, but.
That's Cook Road. Yeah, so look at Wilson Stream. Rufus Smith owns that, I think. Yeah, it's wetlands. Okay, so we need to sort of understand not only what we want to accomplish, but what, where are we gonna get the best traction? Are we planning on bringing this to the June vote?
no,
So this would be for next year's vote or the next election.
right, the next election, so November.
So it seems to me like when I mean, what we're trying to accomplish is to open the door for the potential of a TIF. I mean, there's a lot of layers of maybes and shoulds here. Should a business within this footprint decide they want to, do a rapid expansion, right? Have something ready to go. It's easy to do. And it seems to me like the stuff that is the closest to certainty are the existing businesses that are there and maybe some adjacent parcels. If I had to answer the question to, a average citizen, how did you choose which parcels you came up with to include in this district? I would be, as an elected official, I would be looking for a credible answer that showed, a tremendous amount of subjectivity and had a lot of other people involved. That's what I would be looking for. Right? That's an easy explanation for why someone ought to vote for this TIF. Like we have this sort of,
Well, this is on the water line, right? It's on the sewer. I mean, there's a reason
It
to
is.
do it. so,
it is. And it seems to me like if we simply say
Yeah,
we are deferring to the comprehensive plan that already exists, we're not using any bias
Yeah,
to
yeah.
push this thing one way or another. And we take whatever these parcels are on 202, if they touch 202 and they're on this comprehensive plan map, that's how we made the decision. Right? It's not like we're using any type of predisposition. This is an existing plan that's already there.
And I
We
will
don't
tell
have a
you,
horse in the race.
if any of you have gone down Main Street and seen, I guess, the more aggressive, advertising of the lot, it's not John Bluen of Valley Harwood and Bluen. If you go down Main Street, that big open lot that's right next to Dan Roy's property.
Yep.
He's put 4 signs on there. He's reaching out to people. He called me. He wants to know if there's 3-phase power there, water and sewer. Is there a TIF district? Is what he asked me. And those are the types of things that sell properties. And so, and he was talking about whether there was a housing TIF there, an economic development TIF there. I said, I'm sure the town would be interested in listening to whatever buyer you have in terms of putting an affordable housing TIF there or just using an economic TIF. So basically, the point is the town being well-versed and savvy about TIF districts is a bonus. And for realtors and other people to know that the town is being strategic in this way or setting up these districts in this way is a benefit.
It's a selling
Yeah,
point.
it is.
Yeah.
It is. And
Yeah.
so
That's good.
I think that, people do pay attention if there are TIF districts in place. If they have to go through the process of creating one, it's a little
But
more difficult.
yeah, it slows down their project.
So anyway,
Yeah.
just the 2 cents there. That's hard to convey to the average voter, but there's also nothing that's a disadvantage for doing this. The town's not losing out on anything. If no development ever happens there, it just doesn't matter.
Right.
So that's kind of some points. But this individual who also seems to have property in Monmouth is really trying to sell that property. So hopefully something will happen there.
Is this the one that's on the left as you head north on Main Street? That the used to
You know where
be,
Dan Roy's place is?
I don't,
Okay.
I think maybe it used to have trees on it and they
Yeah.
all cut the trees all off
Yeah.
and, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Belongs to Piper.
Don Piper.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Enjoy. Thank you, Doug.
So I would say, I'm open to suggestion here, but I would say if it's in this plan and it touches 202, that's a pretty fair and objective way of saying that should belong in this additional TIF district. So that we're not limiting ourselves to just the people who bought Knowles lumber, but it's any of their neighbors too. And it's in a, you know, 202 is, you know, a huge asset for the town.
Yep.
Just because of the traffic.
Yep, that makes sense to me. I was just looking at that again.
Perfect. All right, with that guidance, I will come up with an area for the next meeting. And
And by the way, I would include this stuff down here.
yes,
Same philosophy. If
Yep.
it touches 202. And it's in the comprehensive plan as a development thing. I mean, we may have to change that as people discover what's going on with this. Someone might come to us and say, hey, I've got a plan. If you put me in that district, I want to be in it, right? And in which case we'll figure out whether we want to add that in or not, or change the comprehensive plan or not, but we'll let people self-identify.
We are theoretically picking the comp plan up again in May. We'll see if that actually ever happens.
Okay.
Still trying to find a planner to work with us, so. Yeah, technically, this here isn't in the growth district.
yeah, right, that's why it's on what's.
And are we limiting it to things just in the growth area? Because that makes the most sense, I guess. I know of like a larger parcel down on Route 126 in South Monmouth that is also up for sale and they're trying to recruit. And it's in a, you know, likely commercial zone and, you know.
Yeah, I guess I would say, I think this signaling allows someone who might be buying something on 126 and
Yeah.
feels like they need the help of the town. Now, let's always remember that this is a recruiting tool and what's in it for the town type of thing, which
Yeah.
it's not that Monmouth is just looking to give away tax revenues, you know, what jobs are you bringing here? It's what's in it for the town type of thing. If they
Yeah.
want to provide a proposal that you know, is advantageous for the town, they can certainly come
Right.
and just create a very small tip district for their own lot if they wanted to.
Got it.
So great. That's all I had for that. I can move forth with that one.
Yep, I think that feels fair and reasonably objective. Okay, what's next on our agenda? Item number 5, cannabis polling at the June election. I saw Dennis's note. He could not make tonight's meeting, but his suggestion was for us to come up with a cafeteria style question where we have some sort of legal jurisdiction, right? We don't have legal jurisdiction over the medical dispensaries, medical cultivation. The town unfortunately just doesn't, the state law doesn't allow for the town to be able to say yes or no on any of that. But we do have jurisdiction over adult use cannabis, and we can come up with a variety of potential things that people might feel strongly they don't want to see, might feel strongly they don't care about. And maybe that's the way we sort of phrase it, is like, do you care? Are you for it?
Right.
Are you neutral, or do you hate it? Right?
Yeah,
So
that might be
you can like check the box of one of 3 on like, do you want to see pot stores selling retail? Right, that's one. Do you want to see a cultivation facility? That would be another. Do you want to see there's a processing facilities that exist where people make things with cannabis. They're licensed. Do you want to see a social club? There's another one, social club, which is a current topic of discussion in the legislature. I don't know, what other categories am I missing?
What municipalities have done it well?
Well, and that's actually maybe, maybe we can put that on the scale of where you want to see it, like. Some municipalities have done a reasonable job of limiting the number, so they say yes, but we're only gonna have two. Or one. Yeah, like, we can all tell that, I think it's Manchester has gone a little wild on 202 with the number of retail facilities. I don't know, are those medical ones or are they?
I don't know if there are any medical ones, but part of that
Yeah.
is that their licensing fee is like $200.
They're super cheap.
It's incredibly cheap as opposed to
Right.
some other places where it's 5,000, you know, I mean,
Right.
it's
It's,
people.
it's not easy
Yeah.
to get in.
And
Yeah.
Augusta doesn't have recreational, so they line up.
Right, so you could just say, we're gonna do zero, right? You
Right.
could just say, our number is zero.
Right.
And maybe that's the way to. Maybe that's the way to say it, is like, how many would you like to lead? How many would you like to allow? Like one cultivation facility, zero cultivation facilities? Or, you know, infinite cultivation facilities,
Turn into Manchester. You want to be Manchester, Augusta, or no,
or something in between.
something else?
I mean, maybe that's the scale that we put on the survey, which is, you know, we can, like an opening paragraph that explains what we're asking about. We've never actually taken a poll of the voters. The Economic Development Committees are requesting you to fill out this survey for the purpose of understanding what direction you want to take the town in terms of adult use cannabis. And how many facilities would you like to see? Here's the facility type. Here's how many you have an option of. And if it's zero, just check zero. I don't want any, zero.
Do we need to determine by a certain date or?
No.
Okay.
No, this was a thought that Dennis brought to the table, and I'm happy to honor the request. There's no agenda here.
Yeah.
The town has the jurisdiction to regulate cultivation facilities, or is it just
For
retail?
recreational purposes.
Yeah.
So the one that at least one that exists on next to me.
Yeah, that's a medical one.
Is technically medical.
That's correct. As is the one, as is the one on 202 in the old Greek Orthodox Church.
No, there must be regulations on.
Is that in the TIF district? I think it's gonna be in the TIF district.
Uh-oh, no, they're not getting a tax. I know what their profit margin is. They're not getting.
You know, some of these questions might also be contingent upon, you know, some concerns that people generally have about facilities like smell,
Yeah.
traffic,
Yeah.
you know, some.
Where it is.
Yeah, where it is, right next door to the, you know, elementary school, or, you know, I mean, that,
Okay.
that type of thing too, so, I don't know how.
Well, that could be another question. That could be, if we were to allow any of these facilities, would you be opposed to regulations that include, you know, smell, location, of, you know, substantial offsets or, you know, substantial setbacks for, you know, from places where there might be schools or kids or, you know, or homes. Would you be, you know, to what degree would you be opposed to regulations on odor control? Right, to what degree would you be opposed to regulations on, you know, traffic and parking and some of the planning board stuff?
Okay.
I mean, at one time, this was back when adult use was coming into effect. The planning board was contemplating allowing something in a super remote part of town, like out here on 202, where there are no homes. And, you know, the setback would have been 500 feet from a residential property. You can have one store. That's what and then that kind of fell apart. Nobody bothered to go after it. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems Dennis was just interested in a temperature check, which, you know, I think is reasonable. I know in the city of Augusta, they also brought that up because they didn't allow recreational from the start. And they limited the number of medicinal. And it's been 7 or 8 years, hasn't it? I mean, it's been a while that the things have kind of evened out and they're starting conversations again about, you know, what do people think of recreational again? You know, just as things as the dust has settled. So, yeah, people might just say we're set the way we are, we're all set.
That's fine.
Or they're interested in the tax revenue that might be associated with it.
I wonder, you know, Monmouth has come a long way in terms of alcohol. Not sure if you're aware of the history of this, but Monmouth was a dry town up until like 1980 something. And in fact, that even that was sort of controversial because every vote, there would be like this referendum question on, does Monmouth want to issue liquor licenses? And for like 10 years, people were voting and then it would get turned down. And then the next time around, same question would come up. Do you want to issue liquor? No. Right? Do you want to issue liquor licenses? No. You want to issue liquor licenses? No. Then the town clerk retired. Do you want to issue liquor licenses? Yes. And someone goes back to the
Yeah.
ballots from the previous election.
No.
No way.
Oh, my God.
Shouldn't the clerk be in jail?
I was gonna say.
He was retired.
Entirely illegal.
Wow.
Hilarious.
Wow.
So
Sort of hilarious. It's terrifying.
this is like the 70s or
Yeah.
80s. Yeah.
Anything
A little
like
bit of
that.
a wild west. So, I wonder, I don't know if there's a way to point that out. Maybe it's not even worth being pointed out, but you know, one of the arguments, the substantial arguments that was made over the legalization of adult use marijuana is that it should be treated like alcohol. And thinking of it in that way actually has some advantages because you're essentially establishing, you know, a market that's age restricted, and the idea is to try and keep it out of kids' hands and regulate it in a, you know, a logical way and not a judgmental way.
Yeah.
And
Does the town have anything? Books for, I mean, we have a brewery.
well, we got a brewery, we issue liquor licenses to TJ's.
But I mean, like, are there restrictions in terms of where you can obtain based on
Where you can have a liquor license.
in town?
Nope. It's evaluated, I think, on an as needed basis.
So is that another question for the survey? Is should the town treat? Is that what you were saying?
Well, that's kind of my thing. I mean, I was wondering if we might want to come up with a question is like, should the town? And maybe we can noodle this one until our next meeting, because we've got a meeting or two before the vote actually happens, but should, you know, do some dreaming about how you might think about framing it in that way, because I mean, clearly since adult use happened in the state of Maine, the sky has not fallen. Now, doesn't mean that everything's perfect, but I personally don't think that the two substances are terribly different in the way that we view them, and that, you know, but that's probably a generational thing. And
It'd be really cool. So they put a retail store in the old bank, you know, you can get your weed through the pneumatic tube thing.
don't even go to.
Figured out how I'm gonna make so much more money than milking cows.
I was gonna say,
Try
the milk house shuts down.
So it would be a type.
Comes the weed house. Is that part of the pictures? Right across from Compton Hall too.
You better.
Go see a show then.
See what you opened up, Dennis?
Kind of trouble is he getting us into?
Oh, well, that's good. I'll draft something for people to review
Yeah.
in April. And yeah, if we do have a couple of meetings, so we can,
We
you know,
can doodle
protect
that
it.
a little
And,
bit.
I'll do the same thing
Yeah.
last time, is have it on the internet and paper copies, and we'll do it all that way.
Yeah, so we get every kind of voter, every kind of person who either is voting or not. And is on Facebook and not, and.
Right.
Okay, so that's item number 5. Other business.
I was simply going to let people know that that lot was being marketed on Main Street, drive by, take a
That's
look.
encouraging.
And that I didn't have anything else, if anyone else did.
I have nothing.
Nothing
Okay, do I hear
there.
a motion to adjourn?
Adjourn.
All those in favor? We are adjourned. It is 7:06. Oh my goodness, we're 6 minutes over.
Well, we started at 6:06, so it worked out.
All right, let me turn off the recording and then I have a question for you.
It sounded really shady. when
I
you
was
said
gonna
it.
say, well, we just heard about the clerk, so I don't think it really. Whatever happens in Monmouth.